On a Somerset marsh in 3800 BCE, carpenters laid a wooden road whose plank modules echo, almost verbatim, in the measured thresholds of a medieval commandery 3 millennia later. Why do the same measurements persist across such a gulf of time?
Welcome to Stargate Codex. I am Dr. Elias Thorn, lead historian and decoder of ancient systems. In each episode, we bypass standard chronological textbooks to dissect the preserved records, architectural, mathematical constants, and structural anomalies left behind by history's most guarded initiatory networks, from the Egyptian priesthoods and Pythagorean Brotherhood to the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians. This is an objective, archival deep dive into the hidden blueprints of civilization. Prepare to decode the pattern.
The correspondence I will demonstrate is concrete. I begin with a single stubborn observation. Linear networks, Neolithic trackways, Old Kingdom causeways, Roman itineraries, and medieval pilgrimage axes frequently preserve recurring metrological markers and repeatable architectural waymarks. These are not casual echoes. They are operational modules that reappear in measured form across distinct archival families. The Meridian register, as I will show, is this conserved protocol of passage and measure. To test the claim, I interrogate a bounded corpus of primary materials. First, the dendrochronological publications and excavation reports for the Sweet Track in Somerset, which fix felling dates and record exact plank dimensions and tie-post spacing. Second, measured surveys and administrative papyri associated with Old Kingdom causeways, notably the Khafre Valley Causeway complex, where planning notes and cadastral records reference linear measurements and subunits of a royal cubit. Third, the Tabula Peutingeriana and the Roman miliarium system, preserved in late antique itineraries and copied into medieval cartularia. Fourth, material culture from the 12th to 14th centuries, pilgrim badges, cathedral itinerary registers, and surviving Templar land rolls and commandery plans found in national and ecclesiastical archives. Finally, I read these through Skye Alden's Geometry of Power, treat metrology, axial alignment, and logistical registers as conserved technical systems embedded within initiatory architecture.
Start with the Sweet Track. Excavation reports, tied to dendrochronology, place construction in the early 4th millennium BCE. Field notes record plank widths, sleeper spacing, and a repeated module of construction that allowed the causeway to bridge marsh hollows while maintaining a consistent walking surface. That repeated module is not random. The builders used a unit of assembly for planks and uprights that permitted rapid replication across changing terrain. The measurement language was practical, but it produced a durable geometric habit.
Pause there. This matters. Think of the module not as a number on paper, but as an operative rule for movement. Plank width defines stride, tie-post spacing controls slope, axial straightness governs sightlines. These are logistical choices that encode travel behavior as much as construction technique.
Now the Old Kingdom. Surveyors measuring the Khafre Causeway recorded ramps, pavement widths, and staging points in units tied to the royal cubit, approximately 52 centimeters, along with explicit submultiples for steps and ramps. Administrative fragments from pyramid construction accounts enumerate lengths and stages in those units. The result is a planned axis, measured, provisioned, and integrated with funerary processional geometry. Compare that axis to the Sweet Track's operative module and a pattern appears. Proportional correspondences in axial ratios and staging intervals that persist even as the cultural frame changes.
The Roman logistical lattice then codified distance as governance. The miliarium, 1 Roman mile at roughly 1,480 meters, regulated courier timetables, tax assessments, and military staging. The Tabula Peutingeriana, a late antique schematic preserved in a medieval copy, maps mansiones and mutaciones, waystations spaced to match the miliarium rhythm. When medieval pilgrims and merchants later traversed these inherited corridors, they did so along a pre-configured system of nodes. Pilgrim badges and cathedral registers cluster at these nodes. Their material distribution is documentary evidence of directed traffic along an older, measured lattice.
Consider the 12th to 14th century badges extant in cathedral and museum catalogs. They are small objects, but their provenance is mapped tightly. Nodes of distribution correspond with documented mansiones and later commanderies. Templar records, property rolls, tithe lists, and commandery plans preserved in national archives show holdings clustered at river crossings, mountain passes, and junctions of principal routes. The architecture of those commanderies is standardized: controlled courtyards, guest halls sized to a consistent module, and threshold geometries that regulate flow and observation. These features are practical and institutional at once.
So the question becomes, who kept these modules alive? The answer is partly institutional and partly functional. Roman infrastructure provided a durable scaffold. Medieval institutions, monastic hospices, civic mansiones, and knightly orders repurposed and protected sections of that lattice. Where continuity is documentary, we can demonstrate direct reuse. Where documentary continuity is thin, the replication is technical. Conserved modules survive because they work. A mason's module carried along a route becomes normative. A route that funnels apprentices concentrates craft knowledge in particular nodes. These are conservation dynamics, not necessarily unbroken bureaucratic lineages.
Let us articulate the systemic pattern in 3 vectors: measurement, calibrated units, fix spacing, timing, and resource allocation; movement, axial alignments and waystations channel human flow, concentrate traffic, and enforce predictable encounters; custody, institutional oversight, property rolls, lodge registers, guarded thresholds, creates documentary traceability and retention of privileged techniques. When combined, these vectors produce a transmissible technology of passage. Physical geometry plus documentary control equals preserved authority.
A concrete example: a quarrying standard carried by itinerant masons. A module used at extraction sites becomes the basis for stone dressing at waystation projects. An established route funnels those masons to centralized nodes, where technique is taught, copied, and recorded in commandery inventories. Over generations, that module stabilizes into an accepted measure. The Meridian register is therefore both technical and pedagogical, an encoded protocol that shapes how skill and measure travel across space and time.
Where the archival record is explicit, I rely on it. Dendrochronological reports give the suite track dates. Old Kingdom papyri and survey notes anchor Khafre's causeway measurements. Itineraries and the Tabula Peutingeriana document Roman mile sequencing. Cathedral badge catalogs and surviving Templar property rolls provide node-by-node correspondences. Where the record thins, I flag hypotheses, areas where cataloging, geodesic overlay, and further papyrological work are required, rather than asserting certainty.
The codex synthesis is explicit. The Meridian register operated as a spatially embedded protocol that encoded authority into landscape. Calibrated units, axial thresholds, and guarded nodes regulated who moved, what knowledge accompanied movement, and how technical skills replicated. Institutions, Templar commanderies, monastic hospices, civic mansiones acted both as logistic infrastructure and as conservatories of specialized measurements and practices. Read through Skye Alden's decoding methods, this explains persistent correspondences without demanding improbable institutional continuity. It is a transmissible technology shaped by practical need, ritual reinforcement, and documented oversight.
For researchers, consult the Suite Track Dendrochronology and associated excavation monographs. Review measured surveys and papyrological fragments links to Old Kingdom logistics accounts. Examine facsimiles of the Tabula Peutingeriana alongside Roman miliarium catalogs, and cross-reference cathedral badge catalogs with Templar commandery rolls in national archives. The episode dossier contains mapped geodesic overlays, transcriptions, and the primary source citations referenced here.
Access the episode dossier via the Stargate Codex archive link in the show notes to download transcriptions, mapped geodesic overlays, primary source citations, and the curated excerpts from Templar rolls and cathedral badge catalogs referenced in this episode. For institutional requests or archival corrections, contact the Stargate Codex Research Desk through the archive portal. The archive never lies. The text remains.
That concludes our historical tracking of this specific anomaly within the Codex. The records demonstrate that behind the curtain of standard history lies a repeating, systemic mechanism of knowledge transmission and governance preserved across generations. We have laid out the timeline, parsed the primary source texts, and exposed the architectural blueprint. The archive remains open for those who know how to read it.